Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Rarely does a figure in sports come around and intertwine himself into the very fabric of that sport's history. And even more rarely do we see the end of an era from not one, but two such figures at the same time. Nick Saban was college football for more than 2 decades, and on Wednesday, he called it a career. Less than 24 hours later, his good friend Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest NFL coach ever, was out in New England. Pete Carroll has 2 college national championships and a Super Bowl title, and the end of his run in Seattle can barely get a mention in one of the most monumental coaching sports cycles we've ever seen. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The tea leaf reading started early in the season, and by the end of the year in New England, it was basically a shout that Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots would go their separate ways at the end of the season. Still, that doesn't make it any less startling to see the news come across that Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, after 6 Super Bowl titles, are finished. Mike Debate from Locked On Patriots joins me now. And Mike, this is something you and I have talked about on and off the air over the course of the last year or so. Still, what was your reaction when you finally saw the news here on Thursday morning?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Peter, you're still never prepared for that type of news when you get it. You know it's coming. It seems to be inevitable. All the tea leaves, like you said, are reading in one direction. But for a franchise to part with a coach that has been a principal architect of arguably the greatest sports dynasty in the last 30 years, I really think that there's a lot to be said for that. And it definitely is a lot of emotion in Patriots Nation right now. You have the loyalists to Bill Belichick that will not be happy with the decision. You have some of the more moderates that feel like Bill Belichick did everything he possibly could to lead this team to glory, and he did, and they're appreciative, but the time had come for him to move on and for the organization to move in a different direction. And then you have some that are just simply ready for a change and really, I don't think, fully absorbed the depth of what Bill Belichick did for this organization. So there's a lot going on in Patriots Nation right now, but ultimately, this is definitely a bittersweet day. Legends don't come along all that often, and New England is saying goodbye to one today.
Yeah, there are people in their 30s right now who can barely remember a day when the New England Patriots weren't the preeminent franchise in the NFL. We are talking about the most sustained run of excellence maybe in modern sports. Right. And we'll see what the next step is here. I thought it was interesting, Mike, at the last press conference that Belichick had, the end of season sort of post-mortem press conference, he talked about being willing to say, hey, if Robert Kraft and the organization thinks the best thing is for someone else to handle the front office responsibilities, I'd be willing to do that. That seemed like a message. Hey, don't blame me if this goes bad. How did it get to this point? Why was the organization ready to say, we're going to move on from arguably the greatest coach in NFL history?
Well, I mean, initially you look at the 4-13 finish, and that definitely does not palate well in Foxborough, especially with the Krafts, who are used to sustained winning. Let's not forget that since Robert Kraft took the reins in 1994, there hadn't been a 1-15 season or a blackout season the way some of the older Patriots fans that lived through those days, Peter, understand. The Krafts have not presided over that type of futility. And you look at the recent track record, and again, I'm only playing devil's advocate here, but the Patriots finished last for the first time since 2000 in the AFC East. Belichick's that was Belichick's first season as head coach. Hasn't happened since. You know, you look at some of the difficulties that the coach has had over the course of the last couple of years, whether it be with draft misses or whether it be with personnel decisions. All of these factored into the Kraft's decision. So if you're asking what got to this point, that's probably what led them there. But also, I think you have to definitely remind everyone, and I think that's exactly what Bill Belichick was doing by saying, hey, you know what? If I feel that's best for the football team and we can collectively come to that decision, then yeah, I'm for it. He mentioned his contract, which he almost never does. It was almost like pushing all the chips on the table directly in front of Robert Kraft and saying, okay, I'm willing to do what it takes to make this work. It's up to you now, Robert. What do you want? Obviously, ownership felt that it was time to move in a different direction. So we'll see if that gamble's going to pay off.
It doesn't seem like this is the end of Bill Belichick.
No, I can tell you from covering him this year and watching him still light up every time you ask him to describe a play or the history of a certain player or the nuances and what goes into game planning and X's and O's. This is a guy who loves to coach. And I did not get the impression, even when the season struggled and even when there were, the bleakest hours of the Patriots dynasty in the last recent memory, Bill Belichick always talked about coaching with a glowing type of fire that I believe is still there. So he will coach elsewhere next year. It's going to be interesting to see where his landing spot is. You mentioned Don Shula's record. That's obviously something that's on his mind and definitely in his purview. Does he go to a franchise that gives him the best chance to reach that by winning games, quickly rather than later? I think that's definitely going to be something that he's going to strongly consider. But I fully expect him to be in the league coaching next year.
Do you have a landing spot in mind? Do you think makes the most sense given where the openings are? And could an opening pop open now that, hey, Bill Belichick's available? Let's see if we can go get that guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of different opportunities. I know the Chargers is a name that a lot of people gravitate towards because of the talent in place and the ability for them to compete right away. That's one I would keep an eye on. Atlanta is one that keeps popping up. There's definitely an ownership there that is committed to spending money, getting players in, probably would be open to bringing in whoever Bill Belichick wants as a coaching staff. So that's another one to keep an eye on. I always look at the Commanders as an outside possibility. Even though they say they're out of it, I still don't believe they're out of it. These are definite names that could definitely pop up. And Peter, one to watch this weekend. If your Packers can possibly take care of the Dallas Cowboys and move on, that's a job that I would be intrigued by if I were Bill Belichick. That's a hypothetical, but I think it's possible.
The NFL playoffs are coming, and now's the perfect time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, what are you waiting for? The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, teasers, and more. There's also a lot of weekly promos and boosts to give you plenty of opportunities to increase your payout. Alabama odds are currently 10-1 to win next year's national championship, according to FanDuel. They're fourth behind Georgia, 3-1, Ohio State, 7-1, and Texas, plus 750. Oregon and the defending champ Michigan, right behind the Crimson Tide at 12-1. You can also combine bets for a bigger payout. Same game parlays are a great way to enjoy watching sports. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and do the NFL season right. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Nick Saban shocked the sports world on Wednesday with an announcement to his team, at least according to the reports at the time, that he is retiring after 28 seasons as a collegiate head coach, 6 national titles at Alabama, of course, another at LSU. And it had everyone, I think, going, holy cow. Luke Robinson from Locked On Tide joins me now. And Luke, this was a startling announcement. We are recording this within a half an hour of the announcement. Just walk me through your reaction when you saw the news.
It wasn't that I saw the news. I mean, this is tough. I mean, if there's an Alabama fan out there watching this, they understand what I'm going through. I mean, it is very difficult. It is like, it's almost like a relative passing. I mean, obviously he hadn't passed away, but this is, he gave Alabama fans some of the greatest times of their lives. But going back to your question, I was actually in my car. I just gotten done working out, and I decided I wasn't going to listen to sports talk today because I was like, I'm just sort of burnt out for the moment. I just cut a podcast with ourselves where I'd said, hey, I know we're having a team meeting today. I'm told it's just routine, and I was told it was just routine. And so I wasn't worried about a retirement at all. Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn, of all people, called me and said, hey, you got to do a podcast right now. And I said, what are you talking about? Why? I just did one. He said, Nick Saban's retiring. I said, man, don't do this to me. I'm not in the mood. I've had a long day. He said, I'm not teasing. And then I immediately, like soon as he called, my phone blew up with text and everything else. And I've done nothing but be on the phone since then. And people who I know who are even close to Nick Saban, they were like, I don't believe you. And then they'd call me back 5 minutes later and go, it's true. And I mean, this is how out of left field it was. Nobody should be mad at anybody for not knowing this. This is completely out of the blue. But it's also very Nick Saban-like. And my understanding is it was a very short and sweet meeting with the players where he essentially said, I feel like maybe I have not been doing my best for y'all and doing the best for my health. And I'm paraphrasing, and he just said it's time to go. And I think that is the most Nick Saban way to go out, not in a tearful, I've done all I can do and I love this place kind of way. I think he actually said in there, I love Alabama. My heart will forever be here, something like that. But man, I'm telling you, I'm sorry that this is my visceral reaction. Y'all are getting nothing prepared. I'm blown away. And, I had to go pick up my 7-year-old daughter right after Zach called me, right? Because my wife had a medical procedure this morning, nothing serious, but she couldn't go get her. So I had to go get her. And I was like, I need to get on a podcast now. And I pick up my daughter and she goes, Dad, I didn't know she knew anything. She's a 7-year-old in first grade. I'm going to pick her up at an after school program. She goes, Dad, how sad are you that Nick Saban's retiring? She said, I just want to throw something. I mean, that's how I felt. I was like, oh my God, she is my daughter. No more need for a paternity test. That's my daughter.
Yeah, and please don't apologize. The visceral reaction is exactly, I think, what a lot of other Alabama fans are feeling, and just college football fans, sports fans. I mean, Nick Saban has been college football now for 2 decades, and there is going to be a hole in the college football landscape without Nick Saban. There's no question about it. He is unquestionably, at the moment at least, the greatest college football coach ever. As you work through this, when you just think about Nick Saban and his time at Alabama, what is going to be the thing that you remember the most, whether it's a flashbulb moment, whether it is something about his coaching style? What is the thing for you that will be your indelible memory, at least as you sit here today? Because I'm sure over time that answer will change.
Consistent greatness is the first term that comes to mind. But the second thing that comes to mind is adaptation. His ability to go with the flow, his ability to recognize what was happening, and then even warn some people like, okay, y'all want this? Do y'all want football to be hurry up offense? Is that what y'all want? And everybody's like a resounding yes. He said, okay, I'll do that too. And then he did it as well or better than anybody else.
Sure.
I think about the Clemson game in 2015 where he realizes, hey man, we have this awesome defense and we got the best running back in the country, but we can't stop Deshaun Watson and we got to do something. So he onside kicks it in a way I've never seen anybody do it before. How
about benching your starting quarterback in the national title game? How about that one?
I mean, and again, by the way, lucky me, I've been at every single national championship game of Nick Saban at Alabama. I just had the opportunity to go to all of them, and they were all amazing. I mean, you think about the moments that Alabama has under him; they're just absolutely incredible. His ability to recruit, his ability to speak the truth. I mean, he told Terrion Arnold, I mean, this is a guy that's an All-American. Terrion Arnold, I'll say this with a lot of confidence, wanted to come back to Alabama. I mean, he wanted to come back. And in this NIL era, that's not crazy because you can make money at school. But Saban was like, buddy, you got to go. You're a first rounder. You need to. This is your future. I know what you want to do. This is what you need to do. And Terrion takes his advice. That's just a coach being super honest. Now, in hindsight, now people will say, well, Nick Saban knew he's leaving. I don't know that Nick Saban knew he was leaving at that time. Maybe this is something that we're going to find out. Maybe this is something that happened quite quickly. I don't know. It's so hard to digest it right now. This is like a really, really bad meal.
Get daily updates on the search for Nick Saban's replacement by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bama on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Seattle Seahawks will be looking for a head coach for the first time in 14 years after parting ways with Pete Carroll. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, and views from your seat with the best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time has plenty of last-minute tickets to your favorite team's games. They also make it easy to get in the gate with flash deals and zone deals. They make it easy to buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. They've got views from all the seats in the venue, so you know what you're getting before you buy. Game Time has the lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED, LOCKED, on for $20 off. Game Time. Last minute tickets, the lowest price guaranteed. After 14 seasons in Seattle, a Super Bowl title, and another loss, Pete Carroll, he is out as the Seahawks head coach. Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks joins me now. And Corbin, a lot of people were really surprised by this move. You were not. Why?
This felt like this was a move that had slowly been coming to fruition the last month and a half, even 2 months. This defense has struggled so much for the Seahawks, and this is not a one-year thing. They have not finished better than 11th in total defense since 2017. And the last 2 years, they've been 25th and 24th in points allowed. Pete Carroll has built his reputation as a defensive coach. It just didn't seem like, I don't want to say that the players weren't buying in, because that seems a little harsh, but there was clearly a disconnect between the coach and the players. Whatever was being coached on the practice field was not translating to game day. And that's one of the big reasons that they are sitting at home and not going to the postseason. And that run defense was historically bad the last 7 or 8 weeks. And I think the Seahawks organization probably approached Pete Carroll and said, you need to bring in a proven coach from the outside as your defensive coordinator to bring in some new ideas. And I just don't think Pete Carroll was going to be game for that. And ultimately, it led to this decision to make him an advisory role rather than a coach.
And that is part of the weirdness in all of this, that he is going to stay with the organization, assuming that this is something that he said, okay, I agree to that. From Pete Carroll's side, why do you think he would say, okay, I'll be an advisor rather than try and be a head coach somewhere else? Presumably there would be some other teams that would say, hey, Pete, come on over.
We'll see what ends up happening on that front. Everything that was said in the press conference suggested, well, we don't know what this role is that has been set aside.
A tearful press conference, by the way.
Yeah. I'm wondering if this could be one of those cases where it's more of a ceremonial advisory role just to keep him involved from that perspective. I just don't know how involved he is still going to be. John Schneider now has all the keys to the kingdom. He's been splitting it with Pete Carroll the last 14 years. That's no longer going to be the case. We'll see how Pete Carroll handles this, because he is 72 going on 25. I just don't know if it's going to be something where he has to step back and he isn't too involved with what's going on. I don't know if he is going to be able to withstand the itch to coach. And, oh, by the way, there's an opening in Los Angeles right now. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but this could be something when he distances himself from this, even a week or so, he might be like, this isn't what I want. Who knows what the Seahawks ultimately have on the table. Maybe he has a legitimate role that he's still going to be involved with personnel decisions, things of that nature. But I would be somewhat surprised if that's the case.
Stay up to date all year on the Seattle Seahawks by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Seahawks on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. And finally, one more Saban stat to wrap up today's show. In the 17 years he coached Alabama, the Crimson Tide won 201 games. That's 30 more than the number of wins Alabama had during the 24 years between Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. Truly one of the best to ever coach on the gridiron. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, the Bears are actually keeping Matt Eberflus, so at least until tomorrow. Stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.